Yes, we have the singer-songwriter, recording artist, Alexis Lynn. So, Alexis Lynn, come on in and talk to me. Hi there.
Hi.
So good to see you.
Thank you
All
for
right.
having me.
All right. So you're in British Columbia. That's where you're calling us from.
I
Are,
am.
and is that your home?
Yeah, I've grown up here my whole life.
All right. Tell me about British Columbia. Well, how did growing up in British Columbia influence you becoming a musician?
It's really beautiful, BC, first of all, West Coast. I think Vancouver has a really big film industry, and the arts in general are pretty popular here. So, I grew up always loving to sing as a kid, and my parents were really supportive of me and my siblings about what our interests were. So I begged my parents to put me into singing lessons when I was really young. And so they did, and I started singing, and then I started eventually playing piano and writing songs, and I would do some live shows here and stuff.
Do you remember the first time you sang in public or just singing in front of people and you said, I like this?
I think I was in a play in seventh grade. I think it was like a Christmas play, and I sang, I think, one of the main songs, and I was so, it's on video somewhere, I'm sure. I'm sure
Oh,
my parents have it, but I loved it. I thought it was so fun.
and from then on, you said you started piano lessons?
Yeah, I started late. I didn't start playing piano until I was 16, but that's when it kind of shifted for me from wanting to just be a singer to wanting to be an artist, because that's when I started writing music as well. I started writing songs.
So
So it
is that
shifted for me.
is that how you define an artist, being both a singer and a songwriter?
No, I don't think so. I think there's a lot of artists that don't write songs and stuff, but for me, that was kind of my shift of focus. I think I had originally just wanted to sing and sing anything and sing anyone's songs, and then when I started writing, I kind of realized I had stuff that I wanted to say, and I had stuff like to figure out the kind of artist that I wanted to be, and I think my songwriting was like a big part in that for me.
When did you start performing your own material? And was it in clubs? Was it recording? How did that start?
I think I started performing first when I started writing at like open mics, because I was still probably 16 or 17, so I wasn't old enough to go into the bars yet. But I started playing open mics and doing some shows in that kind of area. And then once I did turn of age, I started doing some shows downtown at some clubs and bars.
How did you go about getting those gigs?
I went through a lot of them through my originally where I was taking lessons, music lessons at. They would kind of hook me up with some open mics, and then I eventually started contacting venues when I was able to actually play at them when I was old enough.
What was Tell me about your first public gig. How did you feel about that? What was it like?
It was so scary. I was shaking. I still get nervous, but I was very, very nervous. It was probably horrible. I'm sure there's also a video of it somewhere. But I remember being really shaky and really nervous. I think I only did one song, but it was, I think it opened up a whole world for me, also realizing that like I could do it and I would survive the experience and be okay. And yeah, so just continue from there.
As you were starting out, who were your influences early on in your career?
I love one of my all-time favorite influences was Amy Winehouse.
Oh,
She was iconic. Also Michael Jackson. Growing up, I listened to a lot of Michael Jackson. Who didn't? I feel like, but those are like some of my really big all-time artists. More popular like now, recent, I would say like Ariana Grande. A lot of pop artists like Dua Lipa and like artists like that I really listen to. But I listen to all genres of music, so it's hard for me to pinpoint a lot of them.
where do you record your music?
So I was working a lot of out of LA, and then the pandemic hit, and so I actually recorded this entire last album at home. So it was a very big change for me. But I've worked a lot out of LA, and then recently, honestly, from my bedroom.
How did you get to LA?
I started going out there. I met my current manager through another producer that I knew back in 2019. And so I had made a trip out there to see her and work with her. And then it kind of became a regular thing for me. And I started working out of there, and a lot of collaborators that I work with and know now are based in LA. So I do a lot of my work out of there. And then I just recently went back this year, but I hadn't been back prior to that since before the pandemic. So it was really nice to get back out there.
So what did you do during the pandemic? You said you recorded an album, but what was that
Yeah,
like?
it was very interesting. So it was really interesting. So I would basically Zoom with my producer, and we would record kind of over Zoom. There's a certain plugin that we use in our digital audio workspaces that would allow me to literally record from my mic into his computer. So it was it was definitely a different experience. It probably took us twice as long as it would have in person, because obviously there are technical difficulties. It's just different working through a screen than in person. But it was really cool. I think it was very much like a sign of the times. That was cool for that moment in time where we were all at, and also where I was at when I was writing the album. So I think it was, I wouldn't have changed it, I don't think, if I could go back.
So we're going to play a song, a bit of a song called Fall Apart. Tell me about that song.
Yeah, so that was one of the singles off the album. I wrote Fall Apart while I was writing the album, and it was kind of about, taking on so much of everyone else's stuff and not really checking in with yourself, and kind of getting to a tipping point of your glass is too full emotionally, and just having that moment of, you can't hold it together forever. So that was kind of the story behind when I wrote it.
All right, we're going to listen to that clip, and then we'll have you back later on in the show to talk more about your career. So let's watch that, Russell.
Wait, don't wanna interrupt, so I'm putting on a front, but I feel like I'm self-destructing, and I can't let anyone in. Not the type to overshare, I know I'm too self-aware, and I'm way too good at bluffing. Always got my shit together, yeah, 'cause I need you to taste, to make sure that you get all better, even if it means a break.
And now let's bring back in our guest for tonight, Alexis Lynn. Alexis, come back in.
Hi.
All right. Are you being entertained during those breaks?
I love it. I also cannot believe that is a real ad.
Oh, seriously. It just came out last night. And I said this morning, I was going, oh, I've got to add that. I've got to add that. All right, Alexis, the last clip that we showed of the Fall Apart video, Dwayne Scott Sierney wrote it. He loved it because it had a photo booth. And there's some really cool technical aspects of your videos. Do you, when you write a song, are you creating the video in your head, or does your producer say, hey, this is what we're going to do with your song?
Yeah, so for all of my recent 3 videos, I actually wrote the treatments for them. I had kind of had this vision of when I was finishing the album that I wanted the videos to be quite cohesive, and I had these concepts for each of the singles. So I brought the concepts forward to the director I worked with, and then we ended up kind of tweaking the treatment together. But I love the visual aspect of the music industry as well, so I always want to have a hand in all the little parts.
No, it's very good. And some of the other 2 we're going to show tonight, I've got comments and questions about it as well. And it's really fascinating. So how long does it take to make a video for a song such as the one we saw?
Well, so I probably talked with the team that I worked with for probably like a month prior. And then once we had everything set up, we actually shot 4 videos in 3 days. So it was very fast. It was very long days, but the team was amazing, and we got it all finished. But yeah, and then it probably took them a couple of weeks of editing to get everything back together. So it's a process, but when it's organized well, it's a little bit quicker. But it was, yeah. So we got it all done in 3 days, the technical shooting part of it.
And this was done in a studio in LA?
In Vancouver.
Oh, Vancouver.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You're Hollywood of the North.
Yeah.
So have you performed, you said it's Hollywood of the North. Have you performed or have you appeared on any of the episodes or anything that's been filmed up there?
No, none of the film stuff. I would love to, though. There's always something being filmed. Like, you drive anywhere around in kind of BC, like in the suburb that I'm in, but also in Vancouver, and there's always something being filmed. So maybe I'm in the background of something that I just don't know.
What would you like to be in?
What did they recently film here? They filmed Deadpool here a few years ago. So maybe I'm in that somewhere. They also film Riverdale, I think, really close by
Really?
here.
Riverdale there.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
They make it look like New York or wherever it is.
Yeah.
You talk about collaborate with people on projects. Tell us about how you feel about collaboration.
I love collaborating. I was really scared of it when I first started writing songs because I think as a songwriter too, it's songwriting itself is being really vulnerable with yourself. And then also to bring someone else in on that is you're being really vulnerable with them. So I was really nervous about collaborating at first. And now, honestly, the majority of work that I do is in collaboration with people. It just opens up a whole new world as a songwriter of, you come up with all your own ideas, but someone's going to come up with something that you would have never thought of. And so I think it's one of my favorite parts of the music industry is collaborating with so many different people and, putting ideas together. So I really love it personally. I love working with new people and working with a bunch of different people. It's always really fun.
How do you go about finding people to collaborate with?
Usually, honestly, like the music industry is very large, but also very small. Like I think everyone kind of knows each other. So it's, I'll kind of meet one writer and I'll write with them. And then I'll meet someone else through them and I'll write with them or like that kind of thing. So it's all a very collaborative industry.
All right. Has there been a time where you've hooked up with a collaborator and you go, this ain't going to work?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It happens sometimes. It's kind of, you just finish the session and, like, okay, maybe I wouldn't do that again kind of thing. It's, yeah, I don't have any horror stories, but there's been some I definitely, you kind of realize after you're like, I would not work with that person again.
Now, on the other hand, have you worked with somebody go, oh, I really like them. And they go, we don't want to work with Alexis.
I mean, maybe if I have, they haven't told me to my face, but maybe someone I've worked with has felt like that. I'm not sure.
I doubt it. I really doubt it. Okay. Our next clip we're going to listen to is called Make You Happy. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I wrote this song about actually an ex that I was with at the time, and he had really struggled with his mental health. And so I had written it about, kind of taking charge of your own mental health and knowing that you can love someone as much as you can, but love doesn't necessarily fix what they're going through, and that only comes from yourself. And it was really funny, actually. I wrote this, I think a year before we broke up. And so I had written this song and we were together and he had heard it and everything. And then I had filmed the video for this song last November. And I went home that night and we broke up. So it was really interesting. But it's, it's about just, knowing that you can't get your happiness from anywhere else and that it's got to come from inside of yourself.
Very good. Okay, we're going to talk more about your relationship with writing about mental health and some of your supporting causes when we have you back for part 3 later on. But right now, we're going to listen to Make You Happy.
No, I can't be the only one you talk to. I'm not qualified to deal with all your issues. It's not healthy for me to try to fix you, even though I wanna make it alright. I see your blank stare like static on the TV. Are you in there or are you overthinking? I've been worried that you've been sinking into your mind. Gotta take a deep breath, baby, you're fine. Tell my inner voice that you got a choice. Only you can make you happy. Only you can make you happy. Can give you all the love that will be enough. Only you can make you happy. Only you can make you happy.
I was dancing. All right. I love the yellow in that. The yellow scheme. We'll talk about that when we bring Alexis back. All right. Let's bring on Alexis Lynn for our last part of our interview. Alexis, come on back in. Hello there. Oh, that last clip that we showed of yours, the yellow, was that your idea? Was that your color scheme?
It was. I wanted everything to be like obnoxiously yellow.
I wouldn't say obnoxious. It was just yellow.
Yes.
And the phone, I love the phone too.
Right? So fun. Yeah, that was a really fun shoot.
You probably growing up didn't have that type of phone, did you?
I remember my dad. My dad was a denturist, so he made dentures, and at his office, he had one that I would always play with. Yeah.
Oh, the zero. Oh, I hate it when they had
Yeah.
a zero in their number. Yeah.
Yeah. All the way back.
All right. We talked earlier about you wrote this song about your ex's mental health issues, but that wasn't the only song you've written as well. I read a bit about your song Anna. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so when I first started writing the album, I really didn't realize that I was writing an album. I had kind of just been writing these songs, and I realized they were all very centric around mental health. And so Anna was one of the songs that I was writing before I knew I was writing an album. And so I had struggled with an eating disorder in high school. I was struggled with anorexia, and I was diagnosed when I was 16 and sent to an outpatient treatment program. I'm in recovery now, which is great, but I had wanted to, and I felt that I needed to write a song about it for a long time, and I couldn't. It took me a really long time to be able to sit down and actually write a song about that experience. And so it was a couple of years into my recovery in 2020 when I finally wrote it. And so I wrote it with my friend Kyle. And I wanted to personify it because I think for a lot of people that might not understand eating disorders, it truly does feel like a toxic, abusive relationship that that you're kind of fighting to get out of, but also to stay in. So I thought it was a really personal perspective, and I didn't really know if I was going to put it out at first. But once I kind of had decided to put the album out, I thought that it was a song that I might have needed to hear at the time, and that maybe someone else might need to hear it.
Have you heard any response from others who associated with themselves with your song?
Yeah, it's been really sweet. I've had some people reach out and relate to the song, which is really sweet. And it's always, I think that's like the goal as a songwriter, is to make people feel seen and heard. And so to the fact that some people have said I've done that for them has been really, really rewarding and really kind.
How can people listen to your music?
Yeah, I'm on all streaming platforms. So Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, Apple Music, all that stuff as Alexis Lynn. And yeah, my website is alexislynnmusic.com. So you can find all my music on there as well.
Now, we showed a little clip of our resident singer, Rusty Peen. Now, is he someone you might want to collaborate with?
Absolutely. 10 out of 10.
I think Rusty's Peen just got a little sharper right now. I think by hearing that. All right. The last clip we're going to listen to is House on Fire. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I wrote House on Fire about watching someone I love struggle with addiction. So it's another very personal song, but I kind of brought forward this concept to my co-writers of talking about how watching someone who, again, you can't go inside someone's head and help them. It's, an addiction, I think, is one of those mental illnesses that's really hard for people to understand, and you really want to help, but there's only so much you can do. And so I kind of relate it to them as it's like watching somebody in a burning house, and you really want to go in and you want to save them, but you can't. And also someone might not necessarily be trying to get out. So that's how we kind of came up with House on Fire. And yeah, it's also on the album.
Well, Alexa, I really admire the way you've combined your advocacy for mental health issues and your love of music writing, and combine them together with a nice dance beat too. So,
thank you. Yeah.
So thank you very much. We look forward to hearing more from you, and come back and join us here on Amber Live sometime. But right now, we're going to close you out with House on Fire. Thank you.
You can always do what you want to, no matter what anybody tells you. Chasing temporary fixes, you won't call it quits, just living to exist. Yeah, shit, I'm the one who's there on all your bad days, but you can't bring yourself to meet me halfway. I lose sleep, but I love you too much to let you leave. Your ignorance is bliss, and I know that you're not listening. And I feel so helpless, trying to help you from the outside looking in. Yeah, you're trapped in a house on fire, and it's burning, burning down. You're trapped in a house on fire, you won't let me get you out. Cause it looks to me that you don't wanna be saved. I just sat here 10 feet away, watching
Wow. I love the way her production values of her videos, the message of her songs. Thank you so much, Alexis Lynn, for joining us tonight. Russell, point out the her address one more time on the screen, if you could, please. Yes, go to alexislynnmusic.com and check her out, and as well as on social media. You won't regret it.